Well, I've lost power to everything. Everything except two things. The starter button, because it's hot wired, and the fridge, because it's hot wired. So I guess in the real world you could say, hey, the motor runs and the fridge works, so we're all good. That's not a breakdown. A breakdown's when something breaks. That was just Milo's way of saying, not today.
It had been wired up in the way John wanted it wired up, but he couldn't remember how it was wired up. So it just took a little while to work it out.
It's the relay. Gleno, magic hands.
Worked out just to be a connection.
So loose wire, easily fixed, no problem. Won't even mark it in the logbook. I've even got the UHF. That means I've got to listen to the producer's instructions again.
Hang on, I can break it.
Good on you, mate.
So it's probably never been better.
That was pretty amazing, really. 2 sticks track. I mean, if there was 2 sticks, they were black. Everything was burnt. But I think what blew me away was the amount of new growth already. It was just insane. You know, there was fresh stuff coming through and you could smell it, you could see it. The smell of eucalypt in the air actually overwhelmed the smell of charcoal. Pretty impressive. So, we're about 18 k's southwest of Holbrook. It's just over there. And we're right up on top of North's Lookout. So this is where we're kicking off a journey that I just love, absolutely love. From here, we're going to go to Jelic, and then we're going to cruise up the edges of Australia's iconic river, the Murray. We're going to go all the way to Auka, and we are going to find you some of the best camping spots on earth. If you love Australia, you're going to love the Murray River camping.
Looking at what we were doing this season, I saw this. This is the one I've had my eyes on, John.
I thought so, mate. You know what? This is the heart of Australia. Beautiful. There she is, Gleno, the mighty Murray River.
Ah, that's a sight I've always wanted to see. Geez, it's clean and flowing.
Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it? It's funny in a way, because you've been to the beginning of the Murray and you've been to the end of it. I know you have, because I've been there with you, but you've never seen the middle of it, eh?
I didn't really know when we were going to see it, but when we saw it, we were driving on the left-hand side of it. It was just like, it was bigger than I thought, wider than I thought, and flowing. What a mighty sight. I was super excited.
Wow, it is pumping.
This happens wherever you are in Australia, you know. 1 minute you're sailing along, you've got it, you've worked it out, this is how it's happening. The land looks like this, and then all of a sudden it changes. And it's those big changes, like when we popped out and could suddenly see the whole Murray Valley, that just blow you right away. That is some of the most picturesque country in Australia, and we were just in the right place to see it. We're right on the outskirts of Jelic, and Jelic is a town I've known for a long time, but Australia's known for a whole lot longer. Right here on the New South Wales side of the Murray River. What made Jelic, I guess, kind of special was the fact that sometime around the 1890s, early 1891, I think, they finished the bridge across the river, okay? And so on the New South Wales side of the border, they built a pub, the Bridge Hotel. But on the Victorian side of the border, they built a customs house, because in those days, the state still taxed stuff that crossed the border, you know? So you had all these guys sitting over there going through the custom house, and then over here you had the Bridge Hotel. You know what you also had here though? You had Horse Ford, just down here a little bit. And at Horse Ford, you could cross the river on a horse. So a whole lot of smuggling happened over the years as people tried to avoid the customs house. Now that's pretty much the way it went until the 1920s when they stopped at customs. That sort of changed things a little bit, but what really changed life for the people in Jelic, not that there was ever many of them, the population's 61 now, was the fact that in the 1950s, they built a new bridge. The old bridge, steel trestles, you can still see them poking up, and that changed the whole town because basically the new bridge was further up there. So it bypassed the town. But you know what? That should never stop you from coming to Jelic. Even as a Queenslander, I've been a regular here for a long time. You know why? Because it just feels right. Right on the Murray, right between the two states, and the ghosts of a few old smugglers hanging around.
The weather looks like it's up to something, so we might make a move to our next destination. We're heading about an hour southwest to try and find a new perspective.
The Tanga lookout was a good climb up there. It gave us a perfect view of the Hume Dam, the Lake Hume, and Tanga town, the one that had been moved back in the 1950s. It looked like the town itself was at the bottom of the lake. So, you know, I had a few questions to John about, is that really high enough to not get flooded out? But he assured me it was.
The reason is because when this lake is full, you know, which it hasn't been for a long time because of the big drought, all this valley is underwater. It's all underwater all the way up there. Here we are looking at Tanga, and it's closer to the water, but it's on a lump, it's higher up. So they obviously wanted to keep it on a big flat piece of land, which it used to be, but at the same time they needed it about 20 foot higher and still close to the highway, and most importantly close to the railway track.
Yeah, well, we camped that night on the Hume Dam and perched ourselves up nice and high, just overlooking the dam. It was beautiful over like the mountain ranges. There's a storm coming.
Hey Gleno, I reckon this is going to do us.
We got the pick, mate. This is amazing.
So I'm looking at all this grass, this big mound, the water, the lake in front of us. It's just fantastic, but the first thing I saw was a big black cloud coming in over the horizon, massive. And then there's some lightning, you know, and it's like, okay, we're gonna get knocked here, big time. But there are times in our traveling life when to be in the middle of a storm is just the most ultimate experience. Well, it wasn't that time, it was about 30% because the storm sort of went right around the edge. I'm really glad it did. But what a view, what an insane view. The Murray starts up in the Victorian high country, up behind little places like Woods Point, and you can see little tributaries, creeks coming together to form this massive river, which by the time it gets to Wodonga is starting to look really big. Now, anyone who's travelled Australia a fair bit realises that we've got that great big mountain range all the way down the eastern side, and that's basically, it's off the western side of that where all these waters come together to form the Murray. Now, Then the Murray crosses all the way over Australia, 2,500 kilometres. And the Darling comes in from up in Queensland and meets up with it just over the border. And the whole confluence of this creates Australia's biggest river system. But it's beautiful and it's crucial. It's really crucial. In the early days of white settlement, you know, the first thing they realised was that the Murray was fantastic to irrigate from. So people started to get water out of it. Over the years, that's meant a series of locks and pumps and dams and all sorts of other things. Unfortunately, all these locks and dams and pumps and all the regulation and everything else has pretty much inverted the Murray's natural water flow. In the old days, before white men came along and kind of ruined it, the Murray would flow mostly in the winter and then it would dry up in the summer. A cyclical thing, just like the rest of Australia. But of course, that's not what happens these days. It actually happens the other way around. It's been known in periods of intense drought to dry up completely, and it floods occasionally too. But at the end of the day, this little bit that we're doing from Wodonga to Echuca, which at one stage was Australia's second biggest port because of all the riverboat traffic, is just the heartland of Australia. It really is. It's well watered, it's good soil, and it's beautiful camping. Well, Gleno, I reckon once we sort of get close to the Murray, we're not going to be doing a lot of four-wheel driving because there's not an awful lot to be done. So we should take advantage of it and have a knock around, see what's up this track, eh?
Yeah, that's good, mate. I'm actually in high 4 now.
I've never been here before. I love it. Whenever I haven't been somewhere, it's awesome.
We know there's not lots of four-wheel driving around here. Obviously the Murray is the main focus. But we thought we'd take the short track up and over a hill, see if we could get a scenic. Well, we got that, but I had to lock the Hilux into low range, rear diff lock on because it got steep.
Oh, here we are in the Duda Park. You got a few locks to go around there, Gleno.
Mate, this is steep in sections too. Very close to the edge there with the van.
I'll tell you what, we turned off the highway and we haven't stopped climbing, really. This has been insane.
Yeah, I didn't think there was going to be this much up.
This is awesome. This is like some real four-wheel driving. I wasn't expecting this.
No, not at all, and it's getting steeper.
People always say, geez, Ruthie, you must have seen a whole heap of Australia. And all I can say is, do you know how much of Australia there is that I haven't seen? And Duda is a prime example. I mean, it looked like it was someone's backyard track. You know, it's fairly obvious that that little mountain country was way too hard to access for the local cockies. So they've just left it, and then parks have pegged it out and said, that's the park. And that's about where it ended. Nothing happened after that. Awesome little place, great.
Mighty impressed with how the Luxie went. Jammed another 30% horsepower in her to tow the expedition down here.
Well, that might not have been the longest track on earth, but gee, it was exciting. It had a bit of everything.
It did. Up, down, switchbacks.
But mate, I really enjoyed that, and I loved the view from the top. I've just never been here before, and I just wasn't expecting it.
Yeah, Chilton, beautiful little town. We were stopping off there to grab a pie, like me pies, and a sausage roll. This strange voice, well, I say strange because it had a slight tinge of an accent in there, come across the radio.
DustEmUp boys, you got a copy?
And I heard this voice before, but you know, and this guy's done it to us before too, just rocking up unannounced.
It looks like you boys are out doing some more touring, eh? You got room for another one?
It was Matt from Zone.
I mean, you know, there's Matt in Chilton, okay? Well, I kind of half expected it because I know he gets out there, he's all over the place. I kind of figured we'd connect with him again.
Well, I mean, I was just in the area, you know, Sunshine Coast, Chilton. Definitely don't have a GPS tracker in the expedition series. And if I did, I wouldn't have used that to know where they were.
Mind you, that truck he had, wow. I mean, the whole rig, that new caravan and that truck, slightly longer than a B double, I reckon. It was massive.
He loves these trips. He loves to test his equipment.
I get the feeling Matt likes hanging out with us. As long as no one can hear me saying this, I like hanging out with him too. This is Chilton, just off the Hume Highway, rarely visited. Beautiful little town. They found gold here in 1859, good gold too, which is why when you look down the main street of Chilton today, it's pretty much unchanged. You know, you could just about take the cars out and whack down a load of dirt and you'd have Chilton exactly the way it was when Ned Kelly rode all around here. What's the point of the Ned Kelly story? Well, I can tell you, this is Kelly country. And in fact, here's a little known fact about the Kellys. If you remember, Ned's rampage throughout all this part of Victoria and into New South Wales all kicked off from one incident, and that's when Constable Fitzpatrick went out to Ellen Kelly's house looking for Dan Kelly because he had a warrant to arrest Ned's brother Dan. Well, guess what? The result of that was that Fitzpatrick, who was probably drunk, had a bit of a go at Kate Kelly. Ellen hit him with a frying pan, you know. It all turned to rubbish. He came back to town and accused Ned of, you know, having a go at him and all the rest of it. I think he shot himself. But the whole point is one drunken Irish copper and all of a sudden the Kellys are outraged and Ned and his gang are taken off. What's Chilton got to do with that? Well, it was right here in Chilton where the warrant to arrest Dan Kelly was signed. And do you know what? At times there was more gold in Chilton than there was in Melbourne, but Ned never came here and he never robbed the place. So there you go. Sparked an absolute riot, but never really got to pay the price. You can though. Come and have a look at Chilton. Beautiful.
It's getting on in the day, so we decide to head back to the river and try and find somewhere to pull up for the night.
Got the keys to the new Ram, new 20'6" family layout, 2020 spec. Things are beauty. So I felt like I was well equipped. No, it's not a compensation thing as much as just a comfort thing. I'm a comfort guy. After Tassie, you know, in the 79, I thought comfort time.
Our first camp on the Murray was just out of Howlong, H-O-W-L-O-N-G. Very easy to remember. Great little campsite, right on the edge. Go down a little bit of a gully, but nice flat camp spot. The river was up, cockatoos were out, the kookaburras were out.
The Murray River supposedly is the border between New South Wales and Victoria, right? But it moves all the time. And not only that, when they surveyed it, they made all sorts of mistakes, all sorts of accidents. And that was like 120 years ago. So that first campsite we had, in theory, should have been in New South Wales. But it wasn't. It was in Victoria. Or possibly it was in Victoria, but it should have been in New South Wales. The whole point is, no one really knew. And that's what you get with the Murray River. The reality of it is that the border, supposedly, it's New South Wales's water all the way until the high water mark on the Victorian side. But that's a big supposed. You try and tell that to the people who live there. How good was that campsite last night?
Right on the river, mate. Beautiful.
That's what I'm talking about, flowing water, nice little outlook, beautiful sunset. Nice work, boys.
I love the trees and the birds. You know, some people don't like cockatoos, but by crikey, when they go off, you know you're near the river.
The long dirt roads out here sort of takes you back a little bit to the Channel country because there's rivers and creeks out there that are flowing at certain times of the year. But what was different about the ones down here is it's farmland, generally around on both sides. It's very dry down here at the moment when we're travelling through. The odd storm coming through, but not enough to really do anything because it was dusty. it's contrasting, you know? Great mass of water in the Murray versus the dry, dusty roads.
The touring around there is actually really nice, you know, it's pretty flat. The whole region is, but a little bit of gravel touring, got a bit dusty.
All the way down the Murray, because it's basically a permanent water supply, they've put in weirs, they've built dams. And when you get somewhere like Lake Mulwala, that's fairly typical, you know? And all they do is hold up the water, which is exactly what they're supposed to do. But in the process, the trees die. And that's probably the most common thing you see along the Murray is lakes with dead trees poking up out of them. Now, where does that leave us? Well, I can tell you that in my lifetime, I've seen a whole lot of those areas clear, you know? They clear naturally. The trees eventually rot away, they get knocked over by a high storm, they blow away, they won't be there. So come and have a look now, because lakes with trees in are just another passing phase in the history of Australia.
What have we got down here?
Mate, we're going to go find a nice little camp down on the Murray River.
Cool.
When we went down to swim in the Murray for the first time, on this trip anyway, I was kind of half wondering whether I should go back to the truck and whack a robe on. Just part of me felt like John the Baptist. Gleno's never been in the Murray before, and I'm thinking, from an Australian's point of view, a swim in the Murray, that's almost baptismal.
Well, my first swim in the Murray, been waiting a long, long time for this to happen. It lived up to expectations. The water wasn't cold, it wasn't hot, it was just perfect, refreshing. It was like 34 degrees outside, it was great to jump in. But it was about 5 metres in, drop off, gone. So the Murray had obviously risen a couple of metres, maybe even up to 10 metres, I'm not sure, because we couldn't touch the bottom, but it was just a sheer cliff. And it's good to get out into the current and you're gone.
It's surprisingly fresh. I don't actually know what to expect, but it was clean, it was fresh, it was refreshing, good temperature. Otherwise, it's super relaxing. I like the Murray, it's good.
The birds are screeching, sun is setting, dusk, and the sounds of the world slowing down for the day.
Look, it's probably about, I don't know, 10 years ago that I first cooked this. And so many people liked it and so many people wound up doing it that it's funny, it's become one of those signature dishes, so to speak, you know. It's not even mine. I pinched it from someone else I was camping with. But if by this stage your kids are going to be 10 years older, it's probably about time they had a go at this themselves, all right? Because this is one of those desserts that will get kids into camping because it's just a whole lot of fun and it's really, really easy. It's pretty safe too, which is kind of good. Okay, starts out with just a chocolate cake mix, okay? Doesn't have to be anything special. Just your plain old chocolate cake mix, in it goes. I've used all sorts over the years. In fact, one of the best is the cheapest one, the black and gold one, but it doesn't really seem to matter. Now, into that, you need to put, basically follow the cake mix instructions, okay? This one, it's about half a cup of milk, Just get that going in there. And a couple of eggs. Put that in. When the kids are doing it, get them to crack the eggs into something else, you know, into a bowl or something. That way, if there's a whole lot of shell in there, it makes it a little bit easier. And this particular mix calls for a bit of butter. It says about 70 grams, that's probably about right. Hey, if it's too much, we've got too much butter in something. That can only make it taste better, can't it? And then that just has to be whisked up. I love the way they say whisked up because it never wants to whisk. It wants to drag, but this is where the kids get their fun. You can see I sort of whisk it a little bit like an old diesel, you know? I mean, none of your modern high revving stuff here. This is good old clunky bush mechanic, 1500 revs, whisking. And I know you're probably going to plug your electric drill into a tent peg and do this twice as fast, but you'd probably be wearing it all over the place too. There we go. So these are oven bags. Oven bags don't always come into play when you're camp cooking, do they? Because most of the time, you know, you're using your cast iron pot. You don't really need an oven bag, but they do work for this. Doof, 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 doof. Get in there. Oh, oh dear, nearly losing it here. Right, there's only one thing for it. Slow down, have a beer. Oh, always works. There's your chocolate cake mixture. Looks fantastic, doesn't it? Yeah, don't say it, just don't say it. It does work. Then, this is 2 blocks of peppermint chocolate. I know it doesn't look like 2 blocks, but you try working with the guys that I work with and see how long chocolate lasts when you leave it lying around. And with that, I'm going to open this bag up. I'm going to try to open this bag up and I'm going to sprinkle in the chocolate. There it goes. You can see why the kids are going to love this, can't you? There's not much in there that isn't, you know, just fantastic if you're a kid. Oh, wow. Oh, look, 1 piece left. I knew. You should have seen that. Cameraman just caught it in his mouth. That was clever. And now I know where the rest of it went too, mate. Now, the mere act of shaking that will get the cake mix in and around the chocolate. That's what we're aiming for. You've noticed these are pretty big oven bags, right? These are actually the biggest ones you can get. And you're going to need 2 of them just to be safe. First one I ever did was with caramello chocolate in it. And I've done a heap of different ones too since then. But you can do this with a whole lot of different things. I even tried it with carrot cake once, just to be healthy. It tasted like carrot cake. And then in it goes into a second bag. That's just a safety. Put another tie around it. I'll tell you what, you wouldn't want me doing surgery on you, would you? Really? Honestly. It's not going to happen. I might buy cheap cake mix, but next time I'm going to buy more expensive oven bags, all right? Okay, here we go. Over here, we've got the old camp oven bubbling away with some boiling water. Pretty nearly full, look at that. We're just going to drop this in, just like that. Put the lid on, and then you want to leave it. How long do you leave it? Well, sort of depends, but usually about half an hour is pretty good. Okay, 30 to 40 minutes. Righto, let's give it a go. Come back, see how it works. Oh, I forgot my beer. Sorry about that. Okay, here we are, 40 minutes later. Let's see what's happened. I switched the stove off about 5 minutes ago, but the water's still stinking hot. And as you can see, our little bag has grown somewhat. And here it is, folks. Straight away, I'm kind of wishing I'd given it another 10 minutes just to cool down, but it doesn't matter because the flavour is going to be awesome. I'll just get Glenn and Matt in here. They'd be rushing, but you know, they're a little bit full of other things.
Saving the energy.
It's just been working out, mate.
Working out.
Steamboat's in the house. Ooh.
You don't have to worry about this being too rich, because it is.
That's good.
It really is.
Oh no. Won't be able to go camping without him if we make this. Insert.
Spoon.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Give that a go.
Oh,
Is that good?
that's good. It's very good.
There you go. You saw how simple it is. It's exactly the sort of thing you need to get your kids loving camping, but your kids involved in camping too. And it'll give them something they can show their kids further down the line. Good on you guys. Right, better get in hard. The crew's been whopping into the chocolate already.
The peppermint, they don't need any, mate. Polish that off.
They said earlier they were full.
Isn't it a good thing they're not allowed to talk when they're behind the cameras?
Yeah.
Do we really have to leave? With weather like this, I could sit here for a week and be completely satisfied. Anyway, we eventually pack up and the track follows right alongside the river. It's just magnificent.
Hey, that was a great campsite, lads.
Just peaceful, and the birds this morning were out of this world. I think if you stick Murray River in front of anything, it comes up trumps, doesn't it?
No, let's go and do some more Murray River.
Managed to get a tip on a bit of a back road that gave us some really nice little four-wheel driving tracks.
A bit of wet stuff coming up, guys. The base looks all right. I'll give it a little explore just to make sure. Yeah, that feels all right.
Yeah, following the Murray, we found a few tracks off to the side. A little bit of a playpen. So yeah, it was time to have a bit of a play. Matt wanted to get the ram a bit muddy, try it out, which we certainly did.
Your first thought is, wow, these are going to be deep. These are going to be deep and slippery and horrible. And they weren't.
There's a couple of slippery parts there, a couple of little rises. We could have spent a long time in there, but we sort of had to drag Matt out because I thought he's having too much fun. He's going to damage something.
And again, I was a little nervous. Well, I've got no idea what to expect with that rig, so that was nice to get it in some little situations. Actually, one of the ruts sort of dropped the trailer in a little bit, and they could have a little bit of work for the boys to do when it gets back to the factory. But yeah, I'd say Glenn was driving, that's what I'll tell them.
Well, this is the town of Auka that's famous for a lot of things, but specifically, apart from the Holden Museum, the riverboats. Because at one stage, Auka was the second biggest port in Victoria, next to Port Melbourne. And that's because of all the traffic up and down the Murray River on these big flat bottom paddle steamers. Awesome, absolutely awesome boats. And some of the stories, you know, if you get a chance to learn them, are just fantastic. About the way the guys had to pull up and chop down trees and, you know, refuel the boilers and drink a bottle of rum before they got around the next corner. There's some awesome stories about the riverboat captains. But then eventually along came the railroad, joined everything up, no more need so much for the riverboats. And that left Auka. Absolutely beautiful. Still dressed pretty much the way it was all those years ago.
This trip has been a long time coming for me. When I heard it was on the calendar, and this time of year, I just knew that swim in the Murray was going to happen. I didn't know what to expect. I love it. It's beautiful. Anyone that loves camping, loves camping along the side of a freshwater creek or river, this is it. This is the one you got to put on the bucket list. This is a mecca. It's not a full drive mecca, but it's a camping, traveling. You got to get out and do it. It's tick the box for me. Cockatoos think so as well. They're everywhere.
I do this stuff for a living. I've spent most of my life travelling as a tour guide, as a presenter on DVDs, as a bush cook, or just an outback guide, whatever it was. I can always pick the good trips by what I'm thinking about. If I'm thinking about coming back here with the handbrake and the kids, then I know it's a good trip. And with the Murray, that's how I spent the whole week. I kept thinking, gee, I'd like to bring the brake here, you know, and gee, I'd like to bring the kids here, and I will. It's one of those places.
Cheers, bro. You get the chili bun? Will you come and work and sit on my dick?
Do you want all three of us to jump in at once?
No, that's okay. You
Just
can do it,
Matt?
mate.
Okay, it'll only be a little splash then.
Is that high enough, Dan?
No, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, my name's Matt, and I'm from New Zealand.
Might be overquoting there, might only be 2 tonne. But then there's the weight of the jambasins and ice in soda water, 2.5 tonne.
Does my hair look alright?
Come to the Murray, camp down by the Murray for a while. If you can't find a connection there, well, just go and have another cafe latte in a coffee shop in the middle of the CBD somewhere. You'll be right.
And you can bring your chili bin, sit on my dick. Back to human again.
What's for dinner?
Gee, that's a good question. I was thinking maybe a tomato with a lettuce leaf or something.
That sounds good to me.
Oh,
How do I look? Beautiful?
No, not really. Hey, I'm trying. Actually, I'm not trying. It wouldn't make any difference if I did try.
Noisy buggers. Beautiful look at, but geez, they're noisy. 7-shot in the shotgun. Boom. Just to scare them, to shoot them.
That's the vegan reach from hell, isn't it?
That must be the mobile cauliflower and lettuce wagon thing he's got on the back.
That's amazing. Wow, these guys are suicidal.
Talangata. The Talangata. The Talanga. The Talanga.
Big bad sheep chasing you, weren't they, eh? Hey? Out you go, mate. Good boy. Off you go.
I actually saw a freshwater mussel in there.
Oh.
I heard a bit about those before. Might have been on one of your episodes. Turn the stream to the left, please.
Keep going. Yep.